So we're gonna make some oatmeal raisin cookies, vegan. And this is another recipe where you can customize how you do it, the add-ins. So you can use oatmeal chocolate chip, you could do oatmeal raisin, you can substitute the walnuts I'm gonna use for other nuts, you can use other dried fruit, but it'll all be good. So we have some oat flour. And to make the oat flour, I just blended up rolled oats in the dry grains blender in the Vitamix until it turned into flour. And remember, 1 cup of oats will produce 1 cup of oat flour, so it's an equal ratio. Then I'm gonna use oats. And with this, like in most baking, we're keeping the dry ingredients together, and then we're gonna have the wet ingredients together, then we'll add the dry to the wet. Right here I have some cinnamon. We need baking soda. Baking powder. And when you're baking, it's really important to use as precise of measurements as you can. So when you're scooping, you want everything level, because baking is science. Once it hits that oven, things will rise or not rise depending on what you did. So if your measurements are off in baking, it's a lot harder to fix that than if your measurements are off when you're cooking something on the stove. Okay, and then we have salt. We have brown sugar. So those are all the dry ingredients. I'm just going to put it to the side for now. I'll get to the wet ingredients. I'm using a banana, like a really ripe one. And that is going to be my egg replacer in this recipe. Mashed banana acts as an egg replacer. So you can use flax seeds or chia seeds, aquafaba. Those are other great substitutes for eggs. But the mashed banana will add another layer of flavor in these cookies. It'll be really nice. And it just helps bind everything the way that eggs would. So I would say about 1 egg would be about 1/4 of a average sized banana. Want to mash it as well as you can. Then I'm going to add some coconut oil, and you want it melted. And remember, you want to make sure when you're using melted coconut oil, you want to make sure that all the other ingredients are room temperature, or else the coconut oil will solidify again, and then it will have defeated the purpose of you melting it. Some maple syrup. And if you wanted to make this recipe refined sugar-free, you could leave out the brown sugar, up the maple syrup and banana, and it would still be really sweet and really tasty. And then vanilla. So Can you get me a whisk really fast? Thanks. Waiting for a whisk.
Room back there. Okay, I think this should be almost done.
Thank you. Right now I'm just chopping some of these walnuts because we're doing oatmeal raisin walnut cookies. And like I said, you can substitute the nuts, the dried fruit. You could throw chocolate chips in there. Whatever you like in your cookies is fine. Okay, so mixing the dry. That's the sugar, cinnamon, baking soda, baking powder, salt, and oats, and oat flour. Oh, and you can see there's some clumps of brown sugar in there. Try to break these up. Then I'm gonna mix the wet. It's the mashed banana, coconut oil, maple syrup, and vanilla. Okay. Then we're gonna mix the dry into the wet. What? We'll add these walnuts and raisins. At this point, you can use a spatula. I like to mix things by hand. Okay, so you get this nice thick cookie dough. Then you want to get a baking sheet. Oh, and before you start this process, you should make sure your oven is preheating at 350. Hey, Casey, can you do me a favor and preheat the oven to 350? Thank you. I'm just gonna grease the baking sheet with some coconut oil. You can use parchment paper if you would like, but grease that as well. 2-ounce scoop. These cookies will not flatten in the oven. So after we're done scooping them onto the sheets, we're gonna go ahead and flatten them. You can use your hand, you can use a fork, whatever you'd like.